For this evening, this study session is solely in regards to the I-65 Segment 1 widening, and in particular, the clearing of property that's occurred on TDOT right-of-way, but also impacting the property owners adjacent to that, primarily on Braxton Park Lane and on Loretta Drive. At your desk, I have the noise technical report that TDOT had done that is dated August 2020. And if you'll turn to page 1, which is actually the fourth page in your packet, I want to read the first thing. The project will not substantially increase existing noise levels at adjacent properties, and noise levels at most land uses are predicted to be lower than the NAC. However, 57 Activity Group B residences in 4 NAAs and the Activity Category C, which is Metro Baptist Church Picnic Shelter, where no one lives, are predicted to be impacted with design year noise levels of 66 decibel or higher. So you turn to the second page, and this is really what has gotten us here. Noise barriers were evaluated for areas 4 and 5. For noise barriers to be included in a project, they must be determined to be both feasible and reasonable in accordance with TDOT's noise policy. The underlying sentence is this: no barriers for the NAAs were determined to be feasible. Give me just a second. Great job. Just unplug it right now. Thank you. Okay, we'll try to work through this. Repeating this, noise barriers for both NAAs were determined to be feasible. However, the required noise barrier area per benefited residence for each NAA is much higher than the allowable noise barrier area per benefited residence. So in other words, what this is saying and what we know is the noise levels were exceeding what was allowed at the time in 2020 prior to the clearance occurring. It impacts 57, they have identified 57 residences. However, the noise barriers of those are not reasonable, and noise abatement is not currently proposed for this project. And that, commissioners, is where we are this evening. TDOT did meet with the residents last Thursday at Calvary Church. They have made a promise to replace the trees once they have opportunity to determine species and type that could be replaced. However, we have no idea what the maturity level of those trees would be. And based upon what the findings in this report is and the impact that the residents have experienced this evening, there is a resolution in your packet requesting TDOT to do an additional sound study based upon the true impact with the trees being already removed, not prior to as was done in 2020, but where we are now. And not only that, but to expand the range of the impacted properties further than what it is in their report. And I'll open it up for any questions y'all may have.
Any questions from the board?
I do have one, and I don't know who can answer this. Has there ever been a sound barrier put up that did not meet a requirement like this? I don't know, in the past, if they have put one up, gone around somebody, done something, gone above somebody? And I don't know who to ask that for.
I am sure that there is. I don't have specifics.
Understood.
I can tell you this, that the sound barrier wall on I-65 from Pleasant Green Park to out to Loma was done in a different phase from when the other sound walls were installed. That was where it came back as a different evaluation, and they were installed at a later time as a part of their third phase, which was kind of down at the 65 Trinity Lane split. They included it in that project. So I know that does not answer your question, because I don't have the means to answer that question.
I just bring that out to everyone because I don't know who can answer that, but I do know from that meeting last week that we all attended, TDOT was quite clear that the noise is not the issue, it's the number that it affects. And I don't know how we can expand it to affect more people to do a new study, if it'll affect enough. Because when I kind of asked TDOT, like, what's the number that we have and what do we have to be at, it looked like it had to be over double what it was going to affect, the current was.
I know, and the reason why I feel like, and I do not know where they're seen the report. I know there's a lot less than 57 homes in the area that wall was installed years ago. And it was done as another phase, I guess you would say, at a later time.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Any other members, questions or comments? Oh.
And again, just from the perspective of the study that would be done, obviously, this study in 2020 was done prior to any construction being underway. And the flow of traffic obviously is drastically changed at this point in time. I'm wondering, and this would be a noise study question, I guess, that obviously that, are they going to do the noise study at midnight, or are they going to do it at 4:30 in the afternoon, or while the construction's going on? Because I think at all different times of the day over there, and maybe Mr. Gilmore could maybe has some personal experience with this, and what I've heard from others along the Loretta corridor is that it is extremely loud at sometimes other than others. And I don't know if they take into consideration that the traffic is slowed down, you get a lot of the jake braking as it's called, and that sort of thing. But obviously, the study will be, my thought, the study's going to be different because the flow of traffic is not based on what a normal flow of traffic was prior to them starting the construction at this stage of the game. And I don't know if that question needs to be maybe asked or at some point in time. I don't know if there's somebody at the TDOT that could answer that question.
It's not the noise, it's the
Personally and professionally, I mean, where I see this today isn't as much the sound level, because it's already shown that the sound level exceeds what the minimum is. And yes, I want them to check all of it, but what I really want them to dig into is that evaluation of a cost-benefit analysis,
Exactly.
because I just don't see it. And it's the simplest way to put it. And you know, TDOT's not here to defend themselves. I'm not, they're friends. I mean, I know several employees there. I just don't agree with this analysis and the determined cost benefit that they're going by, because I do not see that at all.
I had mentioned to the TDOT representative after that meeting the other night, because there was a lot of questions about how long did they test it, was it in the right time of the day? And I asked him, with technology, why couldn't we run a meter for 24 hours a day for 7 days a week to get us an accurate noise?
Well, again, as Mr. Ellis pointed out, obviously the noise level is not so much the issue. They've determined the
Exactly.
noise level warrants the sound barrier wall.
Right.
I haven't looked at the engineering, you know, they talk about replanting trees. I don't know how close the new lanes and the what's the lane called that's going off at the Millersville exit? It's a exit and auxiliary lane.
Auxiliary.
Is obviously gonna be pretty close, I would imagine, to the fence where the, you know, the TDOT right of way. So obviously there's gonna be, I've never known to see a lot, I've not seen a lot of trees between any barrier or any fence in the interstate unless they just were scrub trees that naturally grew. I've never known TDOT to come in and plant arborvitaes for sound barriers along the interstate. I mean, just not
Well,
seeing that.
and there's another piece that really has nothing to do with the study. The property owners are impacted. And now, as the contractor's going back and is extracting the root system out of the tree, out of the ground, they're pulling up roots actually in the property owner's backyard. Some have seen pictures of that, and it can't be the only place. I mean, because if you take those machines and you pull a stump out of the ground, it's going to pull every root, every direction. So there's a lot of impact here that I still feels unintended consequence, but that is an impact to the property owners that this board represents, and I'm hired to help any way I can.
So I guess if we pass this tonight during our meeting, then we go to TDOT and ask them to.
My intent is for this to be passed. We will actually certify it by the city recorder, and I will see about scheduling a meeting to drop that by with Commissioner and have brief. I mean, he's well aware of the situation, so.
Just so everybody's aware of the next steps.
Okay, we're not closing this for the board here, but if there's anyone in the public that would like to speak or has some questions, you can make your way up. Just try to hold your comments to 3 minutes, because we have another meeting starting soon. So there's a timer on the wall there.
Sure. Hey, I'm Robert Coop. Can you hear me? Good. So I looked at this noise study, and my background, I've got a PhD in computer engineering. I've done machine learning and have built a lot of models. The entire noise technical report that you guys have is built on this traffic noise model. If you look at page 6 of your report, I don't know which page of the file it was, but it's labeled
Mr.
page
Coop,
6.
they don't have the full version
Okay.
with them. So they have a copy that I have emailed to them, but tonight was only, since the meeting going on last that long, was only the executive summary of their findings. So
Okay. I won't dive into the technicals. This is really can be a short conversation about the model. They have a section here that says they use a particular model which requires a separate analysis to validate the model they developed. And so the way they do this is they take all the geography and they put it in the model, and then that model can take the amount of traffic going by, and it'll tell you at any given point how much sound there will be. To validate that model, all they do is they say, they go out and they count the number of cars and say, 10 cars went by, and they ask the model, how loud should it be right where I am? And it'll tell them 50 decibels, and they look down and they say, okay, I measured 51 decibels, that's pretty good. They did not validate this model at all. That model validation, I don't want to minimize the importance of that. That is the only mechanism by which they can detect errors in their process. They literally did not check their work at all. And on page 6, it says both that the validation is required and that model validation noise measurements were not conducted. I looked up a number of these noise reports because that's very odd to me. This company that did the noise study, every other report they've done has model validation. It is not at all typical for them to skip that entirely. It is effectively, you could make a very strong argument that the entire noise study is a work of fiction because no one ever checked any of the work. And it doesn't have to be a systematic or malicious issue. If they just made a typo in the entry, they wouldn't catch it. And so the reasonable calculation that they have as far as the number of homes impacted, all of that was determined by using that noise model to measure how beneficial a noise wall would be. But the noise model itself is not validated, it's not tested, there's no way of actually knowing that this is correct or not. And further, there's a lot of things they didn't do in the model, like use trees or ground zones and all this. So there's pretty strong reason to believe that the model is underestimating the noise and the effectiveness of the noise wall in the first place. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to speak or have questions?
Russell, that's not the one, I don't think. I know, that's so it can catch the sound of that. I think it's the connection to the mic right there.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Parnell. I live at 109 Loretta. The report seems to admit that the increase in noise is sufficient to warrant a wall. That is step one. Step two is, will a noise wall actually help? And they admitted yes. So TDOT admits step 1 and 2. It really is step 3, which is how many people are going to be impacted based on how much wall is going to be built. And according to the equation for that, we did not qualify. I think Commissioner Duncan's question is very pertinent. Have they ever gone beyond that and just put up a wall anyway? I would be curious to know. The reality is, I want to know who determined that that is the calculation that we're going to use as a state to determine if a noise wall is going to be built. Who made that call? Who decided that was the bureaucratic red tape that was going to be utilized to make that determination? Because if we're literally putting all of the cards on that equation, I want to know who decided that that is the equation. And I want to know who has the ability. Is it the state legislature? Is it the TDOT commissioner? Who has the authority to override that and say, we're going to change that equation, we're going to utilize a different equation, we're going to retroactively look at projects previously and see where we need to do something different? I would like to know the answer to that question. I would also like to know where 3,200 trees came from, because that seems pretty, I don't know, it just seems like grasped out of thin air. I don't know where the budget is coming from to pay for those. I don't know why that budget couldn't be used for a noise wall instead. None of these questions have been asked. None of these questions have been answered. And I would just like for them to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parnell. Hopefully this resolution that we move forward with will get some of them answers. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name's Lynn Solomon. I live at 100 Lampley Court. One thing that we need to consider here, when I was at the TDOT meeting, they said neither Davidson County nor Sumner County has any kind of sound reduction legislation, any regulations at all. I think it'd be good if you guys would consider passing some of those and say, look, you don't have them, but we do. Our citizens are affected in a negative way by all this noise coming from the interstate. And we would like to have something done about it that would be reasonable, whether it's a wall or a fence or something that gets them their privacy back. The line of sight right now, if they're going real slow on the interstate, we could look at their screens on their phone and see what they're saying. It's really close, right at eye level. So this would be a way you guys could be proactive in saying, we're trying to lead you guys and saying, this is a problem. Here's some legislation that we've passed that we think could help reduce that. So consider that, as well as going to them and saying, redo your study. I think we could do as well that way as we could just by trying to get them to put up a wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
Hi, my name is Emily Sanders. I'm a resident at 816 Loretta. I'm also an attorney and have been looking at this issue as it affects our property. And TDOT has made it clear that they're required to follow federal regulations. And I would just point the commission to potentially look at the federal code, and that's going to be Title 23, Part 772. Section 13 or 772.13, and in assessing reasonableness, it says consideration of the viewpoints of the property owners and residents of the benefited receptors. The highway agency shall solicit the viewpoints of all the benefited receptors and obtain enough responses to document a decision on either desiring or not desiring the noise abatement measure. The highway agency shall define and receive federal highway agency approval for the number of receptors that are needed to constitute a decision and explain the basis for this determination. I don't see that has been done personally. It seems like this noise study was not even made available to any of these residents until a few weeks ago, so I don't know how the Tennessee Department of Transportation would have solicited this information from residents, and if the meeting last week was anything, they definitely heard that residents are not okay with this. So in assessing reasonableness of the wall, I think they really need to follow this federal rule that requires them to talk to the neighborhood and assess that and take that into consideration. And there's quite a few more homes being affected than the noise study shows, which I'm sure you all are aware of. So I would just ask that if the commission's able to also consider that if you have conversations with TDOT after this resolution is hopefully passed, that's something that I would like for them to look at.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders.
My name's Jeff Allen. I live down on Lampley. And my deed said that that's an easement down there by that fence, which is saying it's my property, but I can't do nothing with it. You know, they got the right to come in there and do what they want to, utilities, government. But it says, in most cases, but it says you need to get a lawyer. I'm not paying for a lawyer, but it says when they take something out, they're supposed to come back and put it pretty much like it was. And we talking like 55-year-old trees back there that they took out. I think they made a mistake when they come on this side of the creek on Lampley, and they took all them trees out by that fence. Well, they said they couldn't do it, but because they had to get to the fence. Well, they could have come in through our yards, took all them trees out, took that fence out. They might have tore your yard up, which is an easy fix. Are you with me? And I'm just saying, I think that's why he said
Well, I'm making the decision to put these trees up on my own. I think he's took the trees out, and he's responsible. Not on the other side, there's an easement, 20-foot easement where that fence is. And I'm paying taxes on it, and I can use it if I could have got over the fence. But you know, I don't know the laws. It's different laws for different areas. But in most cases, it says whatever a utility or the government tears up, they're supposed to put back close to what it was. He's talking about putting twigs up. That's all I got to say.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
and one more thing. I would like to know who's gonna come in there and clean our yards up. Everybody on my street is 60-plus years old. I've been picking limbs and twigs up for a week, and it's still a week's work out there. I don't know who's gonna, I'm talking about where they've just come in my yard. I got rocks, I got a log up on my shed out there that you put in, and I'm finding pieces of fence 50 foot up in my lot. And that guy told me that fence, when they, you know, pulling trees out, it shoots. I'd just like to know the answer to that. We're trying to get some answers. I feel like TDOT, I mean, y'all may like them, and we all know the road's got to be built in, you know, progress. But we feel like they're bullies. They've told us nothing. The only thing I got on this whole thing was a register letter, told me, you better get everything away from the fence because we're going to tear it down. That's all we know.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
And I appreciate y'all, what we hear tonight.
That's why we're here. We're definitely here for the citizens and trying to get this problem solved. We're as concerned as you are. And if you don't get the answers from TDOT, you can contact me personally or City Hall, but I'll be glad to ride up there and take a look at anybody's property personally and meet with anybody. Anybody else want to make their way to the podium?
Mr. Mayor, you got Mr. Solomon, I understand what you're saying about the noise regulations locally. I know what they're saying, but I also know that they're going by what FHWA regulations are. And I'm not saying it's of a benefit, but I'm not sure it's going to benefit their analysis of the area. And because I have looked at that when that came up, and I think at the end of the day, they're using this metrics. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's already exceeding the level back in 2020. So it's a matter of how they calculate it at this point.
And I'm not so concerned about sticking it in the formula as it is, as I am just making it quieter around here.
I understand. But I just want you to know that that part I've had to become familiar with, I guess you could say, and it doesn't, from what I have seen and I've read, and I don't mind sharing it with you, it pretty much, we can have what we want to locally. They're still going to go by what Big Brother says.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Anybody on the board have any comments or questions?
I just appreciate you all coming. You know, we care, we're concerned. We're going to try to do as much as we can to help you guys.
And not closing the public portion yet. If anyone else wants to speak, you can before we.
I'll just make the comment, Mr. Mayor, too, that, yeah, I think we all heard really quickly the concerns that the residents had, and I appreciate them raising those so quickly and being so diligent, too, on contacting TDOT and doing the homework and doing the research and keeping us aware of what you were seeing in your backyard. I drove that stretch myself, and I was shocked when I saw from the interstate people's patio furniture and swings and playground equipment, and that should just not be visible from the interstate. So I'm glad we had this discussion. I'm glad you all are here. I'm glad that TDOT meeting happened, and my whole thing with this resolution is, I know we're not TDOT, we can't tell TDOT what to do, but I feel like this is one of the quickest, loudest, and most formal ways that we can use this position to advocate for our citizens here in Goodlettsville. So that's what I intend to do tonight, and I'm glad that we have this discussion.
Thank you, Jesse. So before we close this study session, would anyone else like to speak? Seeing no one else, we will be closing the study session, and our original commission meeting will start at 6:30. So you're welcome to hang out or leave, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you all. Yeah, if you'll run pick all that up, we'll be waiting.